Explosions occurred before the commencement of trading activities in the area.
In the direction of Bonge. Then on arriving the vicinity of Ekamira Nabat, the one with the two bombs exploded. Then within her immediate vicinity, about 17 persons dropped injured.
Meanwhile, at least 24 persons have been officially confirmed dead in the collapse of the uncompleted Reina's Bible Church building in Uyo, the Akwa Ibom State capital. The Commissioner for Health, Akwa Ibom State, Dr. Dominic Ukpong, who gave the figures, dispelled the rumors that some state government officials are among the casualties. And the president has conveyed to the government and the people of Akwa Ibom State the deep sorrow of his family, the government, and the entire people of Nigeria over the many deaths and injuries recorded following the incident of the collapse of the Reina's Bible Church, Uyo. In praying for the repose of the souls of the deceased and the quick recovery of the injured, President Buhari implored the people of the state, especially those in the catchment area of the incident, to rally round the victims of the tragedy to help ease their sorrow and pains. A statement by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, said the President commended the government of the state for handling the situation so far. President Muhammadu Buhari also congratulated the governor of Akwa Ibom State, Udom Emmanuel, and his family on their lucky escape from the tragic collapse. And President Muhammadu Buhari, John Mahama of Ghana, and ECOWAS chairperson Ellen Johnson Sirleaf are to visit Banjul today to persuade the Gambian president Yahya Jammeh to hand over power to the winner of the last election, Adama Barrow. We'll bring more details in our subsequent newscast. The president of the ECOWAS Commission, the chairperson of the AU Commission, and the special representative of the United Nations Secretary General to West Africa and the Sahel have expressed grave concern about the rejection of the election result by the Gambian president Yahya Jammeh, who lost to the opposition Adama Barrow. They called on the government of the Gambia to abide by its constitutional responsibilities and international obligations, emphasizing that it is fundamental that the verdict of the ballot be respected and that the security of the president-elect Adama Barrow and that of all Gambian citizens be fully ensured. ECOWAS, the AU, and the UN strongly support the stance of the Senegalese government on the issue with regards to calling on an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council and urge relevant Gambian stakeholders to contribute to a peaceful transition and orderly handing over of power from the outgoing administration to the president-elect within constitutional deadlines in accordance with the Gambian electoral laws. ECOWAS, the UAU, and the UN urge all Gambian stakeholders, including the elected leadership, the armed forces, political parties, and civil society organizations, to reject violence and peacefully uphold the will of the people as clearly expressed through the ballot box. In the meantime, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has adopted a new strategy for agricultural investment, food security, and nutrition for the development of the region. Ministers of Agriculture of the 15 ECOWAS countries signed the agreement in Abuja, Nigeria's capital, for their respective governments.
A new investment plan is being drawn that will address ECOWAS agricultural policy in the next 10 years. It will be segmented into five years.
Making an appeal on behalf of Nigeria to the West African countries to let's respect each other on the basis of the ECOWAS Treaty. That the ECOWAS Treaty does not permit you to bring goods from foreign countries and pose as if you produce them and pass them on to us. Because if that continues, then...
I would like to remind you that President Muhammadu Buhari, John Mahama of Ghana, and ECOWAS chairperson Ellen Johnson Sirleaf are to visit Banjul today to persuade the Gambian president Yahya Jammeh to hand over power to the winner of the last election, Adama Barrow. Well, that's the news for now. Claire and Kingsley will be back after this break.
you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Whenever pain occurs, you want quick relief. Try new Nurofen Express. It goes to the source of pain and gets to work in under 15 minutes. That's why Nurofen Express delivers fast and effective relief. New Nurofen Express works at the source of pain, fast.
Being a mom is great, but when your child has a fever, you don't know what to do. I trust Nurofen for Children to take care of my child's pain and fever.
Effective relief you can trust.
All right, let's take some business news now. And in an effort to boost prices, Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, and non-OPEC producers have agreed to cut oil output. And experts are also saying that the public-private partnership, PPP, can't make Nigeria a maritime hub in the West African sub-region. We have details on business news, and Joy Uzo is our guide.
Financial analysts have said that the nation's foreign exchange reserves, which increased by 0.80% to $24.97 billion, was due to rallying global crude oil prices. OPEC's reference basket price increased week on week by 1.54% to $50.04 a barrel, while Brent crude oil price rose by 0.52% to $53.98 a barrel. The recent positive movement in global oil prices followed recent agreements by the Organization for Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, to implement a new production target of 32.5 million barrels per day in order to speed up the ongoing reduction of excess stockpiles. ECOWAS trade policies, when properly implemented, will reduce Nigeria's capital flights, create more jobs, as well as boost agricultural activities. These were the views of traders in search of sustainable business growth in Nigeria. They suggest a review of the complex security checks along country borders. President, National Association of Nigerian Traders, Ken Okoha, made the position to NTA Business News.
There is an increase in productivity, especially in terms of agriculture this year. There are other commodities that are exportable that we can use, utilize to cushion the effects of the recession on the economy. Let us move from import dependence to the other side of export now. And they will invest in that. And while they're investing in that, the manufacturing side is also investing. While they're investing in that, the agriculture sector is also investing.
Nigeria, he added, stands to benefit more in view of the abundant economic potentials still waiting to be harnessed. The target of the federal government on self-sufficiency in rice production by 2017 seems to be coming to fruition, as Fadama 3 project has declared that it is in the process of cultivating about 30,000 hectares of rice land in dry season farming plan. According to the national coordinator, Tayo Adewumi, Fadama farmers, as at November, have been able to cultivate 16,852 hectares. It disclosed the World Bank, through the project, has also committed $50 million intervention fund to develop agricultural activities in the northeast, especially with persons affected by Boko Haram insurgency across the frontline states.
With Business News, I am Joy Uzo.
Thank you very much there, Joy Uzo, for the business package on Good Morning Nigeria. Next for us now is a review of the headlines in some of today's newspapers.
Glad to tell you we have Bayo in our midst this morning. Bayo, good to see you.
Thank you, Claire. Good morning. Good morning, Kinsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
Others moved to the Gambia and push for peaceful transition. The details of that, it's on page 5. And Akwa Ibom, pastor of collapsed church, ignored stop work order. You can view the details of this on page 7. And Guterres sworn in as UN Secretary General, while Amina Mohammed to emerge deputy. And that's on page 6. And just a trending story at the bottom of the paper. Power, why Gencos can't deliver 6,000 megawatts target. That again, you can find in details on page 5. And that's the outlook of the leadership. And over to Bayo.
Yes, thank you. President Muhammadu Buhari is to join 3 other leaders, the ECOWAS chairperson, President of Liberia, Ellen Sirleaf, Ernest Koroma of Sierra Leone, and outgoing President of Ghana, John Mahama, are to prevail on President Yahya Jammeh to leave office and obey the will of the people of Gambia. The newspaper reports indicate that the delegation were actually to be in Banjul since last week. It may recall that President Yahya Jammeh had conceded election and said and described it as a will of God. All of a sudden, he now turned around to say that because he has considered his stand based on irregularities, and he has now demanded a new vote organized by a God-fearing electoral commission. ECOWAS President Marie de Souza is also to be part of the delegation, and he has described the U-turn of President Yahya Jammeh as shameful. Gambia is the smallest country on the continent of Africa. I remember when we used to do geography in those days, they used to tell us the area of Gambia is 17 miles by 200 miles. And a larger part of it is taken over by the river Gambia itself. The president, or the first president they had, was David Jawara, and Dawda Jawara. In 1965, he was president and ruled in 1994. In fact, there was a coup attempt in Gambia while Dawda Jawara was attending Commonwealth. And gendarmes across from Senegal walked in and crushed the coup. However, they were not able to crush the one that Yahya Jammeh staged in 1994, and that's why he ruled for 22 years. Ironically, the president of Ghana has also just conceded the election, and I'm sure he will be able to tell him that, look, I have conceded power, so power is not forever. You have to let go at the appropriate time and obey the will of the people.
Right, Bayo, thank you very much. And it was one of the topics we discussed yesterday on Good Morning Nigeria, because the global reaction has been one of outrage and condemnation, but it's good that the diplomatic step is being taken in the meantime to seek to ease him out rather than allow the Gambia to degenerate into a conflict situation. Nigerian pilot is next for us for review. Below the nameplate, restructuring. Atiku tasks leaders to make compromises. That's on page 4. Lead story has a kicker. CCB wants ministers, that's Code of Conduct Bureau, wants ministers, declare assets or face prosecution. Details of that story can be found on page 4. Now, the photograph on the front page of the Nigerian pilot has a caption, Delta State pensioners protesting non-payment of 3 months arrears in Asaba yesterday. Now, 2017 budget will pull Nigeria out of recession. That's according to President Buhari, and says I haven't replaced service chiefs. Now, at the foot of the front page again, we have a window of headlines. Federal government to review CBN Forex ban on 41 imports. And local rice, we are under pressure to meet demand. That's according to Millers. MMM founder writes Buhari, and then, of course, he says that whatever he's saying there. Now, 2 Chinese running fake Trinidad and Tobago embassy in Lagos nabbed. 2 Chinese running fake Trinidad and Tobago embassy in Lagos nabbed. And PDP rejects declaration of Magnus Abe and other APC candidates. Claire.
All right, that's the same story that leads on the Daily Times front page. And it reads, Rivers rerun, PDP, APC reject INEC results. And a number of writers there. PDP rejects Southeast results won by APC. APC denounces East-West results clinched by PDP. APC cites irregularities for decision. No election in Southeast, says PDP. Now, Wike condemns external influence on election. That's the lead story. And of course, if you look down below the picture story, service chiefs not retired. That's coming from Defense Headquarters. And if I just take you to the inside page of the leadership, just before I hand over to Bayo, the leadership inside page 40 says, excitement as NDE commissions first made in Nigeria toothpick. Bayo.
That's good. So we won't import toothpick again. We have very quality wood here. We use chewing stick. And that chewing stick we chew is very flexible. And quite unlike what they import as toothpick, you try to use it, it breaks, and it lacks anything like content. It just breaks off. We have very quality wood here that can serve as toothpicks.
I discovered that the ones we make here are even more durable than imported ones.
But you know why I'm laughing?
Yes.
I never forgot this experience. I was in a restaurant in Enugu sometime in 1983. So the restaurant was somewhere near the FRCN. So we finished eating, and then we asked for toothpick. And the
chewing stick?
No, not chewing stick. But you're talking about chewing stick, and the waiter pointed at a bunch of a broom. And of course, you could see that the sticks were at various stages of decapitation. So,
one, you buy a pack of matches and then you chisel the.
Why go strong? But anyway, this has been one of the sources of our forex leakage, and it's a good development.
It's very sad.
It was embarrassing. I mean,
during that election, and he was buried in Boso in Niger State yesterday. His body was received by his father, a retired commissioner of police, and also the commissioner of police for Niger State. He survived by his aged parents, his wife, and 3 children. This is part of it all. No election is worth the death of any citizen. There are several other reports of deaths too. One begins to wonder, in spite of the fact that we had 28,000 policemen for that election, yet there were violence. One will begin to, I hope a lot of people have been arrested for perpetrating that violence. Because
we had the police spokesman with us on the program yesterday, and some of the issues you're talking about now actually were also raised. In addition to arresting alleged offenders, there should also be diligent prosecution.
Yes.
Yes, but of course, if there's diligent prosecution, the media should also report the stories from start to finish. But let's take other headlines from the Authority newspaper. Authority newspaper, that's above the nameplate now, will take this headline. It says, core member died of kidney disease. That's according to an investigation. Details of the story can be found on page 4. Core member died of kidney disease and failed unitary federalism. We must renegotiate the Nigerian state. That's according to Atiku, who's former vice president. Lead story of the Authority, it says, high cost of rice, smugglers go tough, and kill 80 customs officers in 2016. And NCS, that stands for the Customs Service, warehouses filled with seized rice. And PDP wins 2 senatorial seats in Rivers Rerun. That's the second lead story on the front page of the Authority.
Okay, just quickly, it's a middle inside page story. You might not be able to see that, but it's a sad one. Gunmen kidnapped police inspector in Lagos. And the story goes that the inspector was captured while on a rescue mission, of a resident who was attacked by suspected land grabbers known as Omonile. And that's somewhere in Akudu area of Ibeju, Lekki. That's in Lagos. That's quite sad. Omonile, okay.
Yes, very notorious in Lagos, and I think Governor Ambode has set himself a tax to address that.
But there's a law passed already. Seeking to extirpate the nuisance of the Monero.
Yes. This other human interest story I would like to draw attention to. A Catholic clergy has canvassed for the church to incorporate some good aspect of our African culture in the doctrine and worship. Reverend Father Gabriel Ingbe of Akwanga Catholic Church in Nasarawa State says that the doctrine needs to be amended to accommodate every member of the church. He gives an example. He said, anybody who practices polygamy before accepting Christ should be accorded equal treatment in the church with those with only one wife. He said it is better to have many wives at home than to have one wife and yet having many girlfriends and lovers outside. And he makes observation. He says, the white man brought Christianity to us and mixed the religion with his culture. And Africans just accepted it at the expense of our culture. Father Imbe says, I commend the Yoruba people for incorporating their culture in the way they practice Christianity and Islam. Others should emulate them. If we don't, one of these days, our culture will go into extinction.
Well, we would need King Solomon's wisdom to overcome this. But thank you for being with us. We'll see you again tomorrow.
You have a lot of radical men among the men of God these days.
There's something interesting, and it's on the inside page. Army will patronize made in Aba products, and that's coming, of course, from Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Yusuf Boratai. That's a good one. So we're making progress with made in Nigeria products.
Yes. Including toothpicks. So we'll take a short break now. When we return, it will be time for us to discuss some very serious issue, personal information management. How much of your personal data is out there and who has effective control over it?
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies.
Right now, let's get on to business. Now, that's the business of our conversation this morning, looking at the multiplicity of data collection agencies. Now, concerted efforts have been made to harmonize biometric data collection, and that is to enhance uniformity and administrative convenience. We have Timothy Yusuf telling us more in this background report.
President Muhammadu Buhari had on August 10 directed all agencies involved in collection and usage of biometric data in Nigeria to harmonize the data. He enjoined all the agencies to work collaboratively instead of going in different directions, saying that adequate data was necessary for planning and development in any country. Already, the Federal Road Safety Corps and National Identity Management Commission have commenced a process of harmonizing biometric data as directed by the President. The National Identity Management Commission says the Commission will essentially make sure that it leverages on the Presidential Directive to reinforce the synergy it has been working on. Experts say the benefits of harmonization will, among other things, reduce the cost of governance, enhance public safety and national security, and guide best practices. Analysts believe that in these days of very scarce resources and dwindling national revenue, due to the fluctuations that have become significant in the prices of crude oil, the need to harmonize various data collection agencies is imperative.
All right, thank you very much, there, correspondent Timothy Yusuf, for that brief background. Of course, we have experts at the studios who will elaborate on the points that you have itemized in that background report. First, joining us for this conversation this morning, we'd like to welcome Malam Aliyu Aziz. He is the Director General and Chief Executive Officer of the National Identity Management Commission, known as NIMSI. Malam Aliyu Aziz, a pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay. And then we also have with us in the studios, of course, he's been our guest from time to time in the course of discussing matters relating to ICT. He's an expert in information and communication technology management, Abdul Hakim Ajijola. Ajijola, once again, our pleasure to have you.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Okay, Claire?
Yes, Kingsley. We also have with us the Executive Director, Center for Cyber Awareness and Development, Dr. Bayero Agabi. He's with us right here in our studio. Dr. Agabi, thank you very much for joining us.
Nigerians.
All right, gentlemen, thanks. We hope to be joined subsequently by another guest, but let's begin this conversation by exploring what exactly data means, the kind of data that is requested of an individual, which of course then translates into information and then goes into a repository. I'm asking this question because a number of persons out there innocently deliver up their personal data. They'll say, oh, come, sign the thing. Easiest is, of course, give us your name, give us your date of birth, X, Y, Z. But what kind of data are we looking at when we say data is out there in the public domain or in some repository? Let's begin with the DG of NIMSE.
Well, thank you very much. When you talk about an individual data, first of all, you are talking about the person's name. So in a small community, the name is enough to distinguish the person from other people. But in the 21st century, in fact, data of an individual is in fact the water and also the air for 21st century. And therefore, you need, apart from the date of birth of the person, you also require his biometrics. And these biometrics are in 3 categories. You need the facial biometrics, you also need the fingerprint and the iris. So depending on the size of the database, if you have, like India, that is more than 1 billion, then you have to use iris. But for Nigeria, that is around 200 million, then the fingerprint and the facial will be enough. And then you have the demographic data to talk about the address of the person, where he lives, and also in our own case where there's no much data, you may ask the person his state of origin and ask for his parents, ask for his guardian, and also ask for his next of kin, should in case there is an issue with him. So those are the basic data that we call them compulsory data that we collect. But because there is no much data in Nigeria, we go ahead to collect so much information. And we keep all this information in the form of a database that is also distributed not only in one location, so that if there is problem with the data in one location, you will still get the data from other places.
Okay, let me ask Abdul Hakim here. You know, the question the viewer may want to ask is, why are we focusing on personal data, collection? So I'd like you to tell us, what's the relevance of personal data collection to our national development?
Thank you very much. Basically, I think the question of why is so important. We need to collect this national data on all of us so that we can manage access to resources, we can manage access to responsibilities. So for example, if person A is not a Nigerian, there may be some resources that they may not be eligible for. There may be some rights that may not be for them, and definitely there may be some responsibilities, such as voting, which may not be for them. So I think the why is very, very important. And that takes us actually to the next issue is after identity management, and that is authentication. At the end of the day, you have to be able to trust that the person you are speaking to is actually the person you are supposed to be speaking to, that the identity of the person is actually genuine. And I'd like to touch on authentication in a few more minutes. But
I'd still like you to calm down because the viewer, the ordinary Nigerian that is watching this program right now, How does this benefit him? How does it affect him?
Well, for example, as both of us have indicated, if you can identify that somebody is not a Nigerian, maybe they are no longer eligible for scholarships. You see, if you can identify that somebody is a Nigerian, then there are certain maybe laws and rules and regulations that they must obey. Whereas if, for example, you are identified as a diplomat, maybe those laws or rules are waived or watered down. So for the ordinary person in the street, what for me I think is the most important single element is trust. That the person you are interacting with is actually who you say it is. As the DG of NIMSI had given an example, in the small village of old, simply Claire, daughter of so and so and so, was sufficient as identification. But as you know, as urbanization and modernization have come, and you come to the big cities, there is a great deal of, what's the word, anonymity. So you really don't know who is whom, you don't know their background, you don't know things about them, and it becomes extremely critical and extremely important for the ordinary person. We're trying to compensate for modernization, basically.
All right, Ajijola, well, thanks a lot, Abdul Hakim. Ajijola, thank you very much there, as well as the DJ name. So let's bring in Dr. Bayero Agabi into the conversation at this time. Dr. Agabi, you've listened again to the preliminary remarks by the other guests. Again, still exploring the preliminaries of this conversation. Who is entitled to demand and receive your personal information data?
Well, thank you very much. It's not a thing. There are government agencies, that are entitled to asking for various data. But I think we should look at data beyond just human data, because the essence of data is to plan. Is to plan our economy, know how much money we earn, know where to deploy the money. If it's not enough, you know where to get the other money. And they also know that number of people live on certain streets. If a new person joins, you are able to know that another person has joined. And then also being able to understand that each home may require certain amount of infrastructure that you have to deploy. So one of the importance of having your data is for national planning in such a way that you can guess or you can know whether your country is growing or stagnated. That being said, data today, beyond the human fingers or the hair lead or the eye lead and all of those things, it is becoming your movement. It's becoming your activities on the cyberspace. You have a child today, you put him on her on Facebook or whatever, and then your friend congratulates you, and the next day you say you're going to have, what do you call it, a birthday party and the rest of it, and you put your date and everything, and all their friends will say, okay, we'll be there and all of that. So anyone can harvest all of those information, and process it. Harvest those data, process it, information on you that can physically have a negative or positive impact on you. So those are the things I see that we most of the time when we discuss data management, we always leave out, we concentrate much more on our fingerprint and who we are, and then how we manage who we are.
Okay, you have a follow-up question?
No, well, I just popped the question to the other guests, but just to indicate that we have from our Lagos network studios at this time is the president of the Institute of Information Management Governing Council, Dr. Oyedokun Oyewole. Dr. Oyewole, it's our pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
It's mine. Good morning, Nigeria. All right.
Okay, now let me stay with you, Dr. Yedeku. Now, I asked of course, Hakim here and the other guests, what is the relevance of this, of personal data collection to our development? For instance, Kingsley and I, among the fortunate ones that have received our national identity card, I have the BV. I've also gotten my other particulars, driving particulars. Now, for those who have not been captured, by this data collection exercise, what do they risk? What is the risk for them?
The need to have a centralized database can never be overemphasized. Information, like they say, is the lifeblood of any organization, any nation, or any individual. And they need to ensure that information is properly captured, properly stored, and also, stored in a way that retrieval becomes seamless. It's something that is very, very key to the growth of any nation. The challenges, part of the challenges we're faced with in Nigeria today, like I always say, whenever I have the opportunity, is not really about corruption, but it has to do with the fact that in Nigeria and some African countries, access to information is a very, very big issue. And most of the government policies that are being made on data that does not exist. And in a situation where you're basing your decision on information and data that lack quality, that are not complete, that lack integrity, at the end of the day, you are bound to make mistakes by making wrong policies. And you will agree with me that the fact that Nigerians are crying and clamoring for dividend of democracy can actually be traced to this, because most of the government decisions that have been taken are not based on data that are of high quality. They are not data that are properly captured. They are not data that are properly stored. And even in Nigeria today, we don't have a data protection law in any way. The National Identity Project has been on for a while now. And you can imagine a project of that magnitude without any policy, without any national law that governs how information should be captured, how information should be stored, how information should be used, how it should be shared. These are technical issues that I think the National Identity Management Commission needs to look into. It's something that is of utmost importance for them to hasten the passage of the Privacy Act in Nigeria, because if you get my data, how am I so sure that you're going to use my data for the purpose for which you mentioned that you're going to use it for? You find a lot of organizations in Nigeria today. They collect data from customers, they collect from vendors, from other stakeholders, and at the end of the day, they use those data for other purposes. But if there are laws that governs all of these things, you can be rest assured that in terms of the quality of the decision that government will be taking, it will really improve drastically. The citizens will even be confident to give out information, because in a situation where I'm not sure, I don't know what they are going to do with my data, it becomes an issue. Individually, I would want to protect myself, and I wouldn't want my data to get into the wrong hands. So these are some of the issues. But, it is very, very pertinent that for any nation to develop, for any nation to grow, there is need for us to have a centralized database, which the law enforcement can take advantage of. Those stakeholders in the financial sector too could access such a facility, and so on and so forth. So primarily, information is key, and I would advise the federal government of Nigeria to declare a state of emergency on information management in the country.
All right, Dr. Oyewole, before we come to the declaration of a state of emergency, let's still discuss the subject. Thanks a lot for so far. But again, to return to the question, Dr. Oyewole touched on that briefly. I asked the question earlier, and this is why I'm asking the DG namesake to take up. Who is entitled to collect your personal data? And how much is such a person or such an entity, required to extract from you?
Okay, so there are fundamentally two types of data that is being collected from an individual. There is what we call foundational data and also functional data. Foundational data have to do with vital registration. That is to when a child is born and is given a birth certificate. And there is very clear law with the National Population Commission to carry out this activity. And that data have to be then input into the NIMSI database as a breather document. And then we capture the biometrics. So you don't capture biometrics of a child until the child is like 6 or 16 years. And then you capture when the biometrics are matured. So that is when NIMSI captures this data. Then all the other databases are called functional databases. Like if you, only when you want to drive that you go and look for driver's license. So that is functional, and you also pay for that kind of information. The foundational data that is collected, you usually don't pay. And then if you want to travel, and also only maybe 5% of population in all nations that travel, and then you go and obtain a passport to travel. So that is also functional for traveling. Then you also, if you want to open a bank account, you go to the bank and also they collect. So what is required is that for the biometrics, if the biometrics is taken by an institution like NIMSI, then in each of the functional places that he goes to, he doesn't need to give biometrics again. Central database. So, but Nigeria has been a special freedom. We are the only country that we don't have data. Any other country that they have birth registration data, they also, you can't move from one part of the country to another part of the country without even having a single we should harmonize all this database. All the institutions that have been capturing data should come together and harmonize this data so that we should be part of the 21st century institution. And then the importance, as you said, is there in the budget. You don't do budget you do budget for people, and you need the count of the people to do the budget. You need also, as my colleagues mentioned, for planning purposes. And finally, for security, especially my brothers and sisters in the Northeast that have experienced these insurgencies knows the importance of having some form of identity to identify themselves. Because whatever you do, if you have a form of identity, then the security agencies will clear you out. If you don't have anything else, then you are a suspect. So before there should be any problem, we need to capture the data of all our citizens and all the people resident in Nigeria, and we categorize them so that we should be able to organize our economy, organize our nation properly.
All right, thanks. I was just going to say, Abuja, can we establish a dichotomy between public and private institutions in terms of data collection? Now, from what the NIMSI DG has just described for the foundational and functional, there will be mandatory data that an individual will be required to disclose. Now, when it gets to the private sector, private sector participation, what is the extent that is reasonable, and what is the extent that will be unreasonable in terms of hazards to data in the hands of some other persons?
Well, I think the DG has actually put it quite eloquently that, for example, the biometrics, really, there should be one primary repository of that, which by law is NIMSI. So the collecting those biometrics, and we're talking not just private sector now, we're not just talking of the banks or the telephone companies, we're talking of road safety, we're talking of INEC, that they should be able to, yes, collect the specific information they need for the functionality. But having said that, the biometrics, they should be able to refer back to NIMSI to get, so that you have very consistent biometrics. Because at the end of the day, identity management is about one person or one machine, as the case may be, but one entity having one identity. Now, I'd like to just continue for a moment on the issue of, I raised earlier about the authentication. Who has access to resources? There are three factors of authentication. There is basically what you know, which is a password. There is also what you have, which may be an ATM card. And there is also what you are, which is your fingerprint. Now, very quickly, the importance of all of this for the future. And the DG had alluded to it that, but our ancestors, for example, used cowries. At a point in time, we now used gold. At a subsequent point of time, we now started using this. And pray tell, what is this? This is money. This is cash. But really, at the end of the day, it's just a piece of paper. We may worship it, or some people may worship it, but really it's just paper with some ink. Now what is happening, we have moved to plastic. Those ATM cards, we're getting into zeros and ones. The next generation of money is actually going to be cryptocurrencies, a series of data sequences. How do you manage money in the future? The way you manage money is through authentication. And the challenge I see for Nigeria at the moment is that some of our authorities, very specifically the Mint, is not actually thinking about what's the next generation of money. Because that next generation of money is based on authentication of NIMSI data. There's an interconnection here. So that really, when you think about the basics of our economy, the basics of money, which is not cash, but it's a trusted intermediary of value. That is all money is. Whether it's paper, gold, cryptocurrencies, cowries, it doesn't matter. They are all the same thing. Trusted intermediary of value. And I think, and I'm worried as a Nigerian, that if we do not get our identity management right, especially the biometrics, if we have too many databases with the same thing, then I think we are going to have a big problem in the future. Having said that, we do have to be careful. You cannot put everything in one database. That's also not safe from a privacy point of view. But I would agree 110% with the DG that especially those foundational, those very key biometric information should be kept. And when we say a single repository, again, he has mentioned that it may be distributed in many parts of the country for backup purpose. But what I mean is that it's under a particular management. And if I may bring it down to our compounds, most of us have seen compounds where we have one or two gates. But what ends up happening? We close one gate and keep one open, use one. Even NTA here. And there's a reason for that. It's easier to secure a single gate than to secure multiple gates. So at the end of the day, yes, road safety should have a database, but it should be able to take the core biometric information from NIMSI. The CBN should have its BVN database, for example, but the core biometric information should come from NIMSI. At least this is my perception and belief, yes.
Okay. Let me also bring in Dr. Agabi here. We understand that some of the data collection projects are awarded to expatriates. Now, if you consider the huge personal data out there in the hands of those companies, do you think it is safe?
For me, the safety of data will be based on how the data is being collected. I think the entire conversation is getting mixed up at certain points, because we use the word data and in another way we say information. We have to be clear about what data is and what information is. And for data, and then again we specify, specifically and discussing about the individual. We should be able to tie even properties. I know what the individual own, because if you just take data about me and about my eyes, about my all of those things and all that, how do you know other data that I have? Especially when you have to, this issue of the Code of Conduct Bureau and the rest of it. Those are the things that comes with data when you collect it, and then when you process it, it becomes an information, that you can use, for prosecution, for any other thing that you have to do. Okay, be that as it may, I would just want to make a little reference to what Ajijola has said, about data collection from the various agencies. I do not think it would be wrong to have NIMSI agents, in all these various agencies, rather than allow them collect those data independently, and then wait for them to, turn those data into NIMSI. So if you have NIMSI working in the same place with other agencies like the road safety, like the police, maybe some of the private agencies like the telcos and all of that, I think it will be easier to say, okay, we have seamless data collection and all of those things. Because as we speak, if you privately speak to some of these people that collect, some of these agencies that collect data, they will always tell you that they do not trust this other data, but they trust what they are collecting. And then sometimes they take your data and then you come back again, they tell you that the data is not available, that you have to come back, for you to be re-verified before your phone can work or what any other thing can work. So I think we should take data very seriously. Taking it seriously is awareness and education. We are here speaking, I think we are speaking English, or permit me to say grammar that is above many Nigerians, because when we say data, many people may not understand what it is, but we can stay here for 1 hour, many still will not understand why they should have their data collected and the rest of it. But I think we should tone it down a little bit, so people begin to understand how very important data is, why you should give it out, and why it should be managed very carefully. The National House of Assembly, they keep, talking about more money should go to certain states and another money should go to another state. Is because we do not have data that is trusted, we do not have data that is authentic, we do not have data that we can rely on. So we just assume that perhaps Kano or Lagos may be bigger, or Port Harcourt may need more money, all those kind of things. These are the reasons. So it affects our political being, it affects our economic situation, it affects our movement, it affects our security. So the entire planning of the country, the growth and the prosperity of the country is dependent on the amount of data and integrity of the data that you have.
Well, Dr. Gabi, thanks a lot. Again, you just elaborated on the advantages of proper data management, or personal information management, and the allied purposes for which such could be utilized. But let's go back to Lagos. Dr. Oyewole, again, before a state of emergency is declared as you proposed, let's take a look at this. You mentioned the necessity of having a Privacy Act in the country for the purposes of guarding against the misuse or abuse of personal data or information in the hands of whoever is. But I asked the question to the other guests, and I would like to pose the question to you. There's a presumption of a dichotomy between public and private collectors of personal data. And for a private collector, say a telecommunications company, how much information, personal information, are you required to disclose, and how much of it can you withhold without you being denied of the service for which you're applying?
Thank you very much. Beyond data collection, it is very important to have in place standards, specification. And in our society, we lack that. You know, government can afford to spend as much as they like on these projects. If there are no standards, different data collector will decide to use their own standard. And in reference to what Dr. Bayero said about data quality, you know, majority of those that are charged with the responsibilities of collecting data, a good number of them don't even know why they are doing what they are doing. A lot of them don't know their roles and responsibilities. A good number of them are just doing it because they need to work. They need to belong to an organization. If we are really serious as a country, you know, about this project, I think it is very important for us to ensure that there are standards in place. We have enabling laws, and those individuals that are collecting data, there has to be certain requirements, you know, before you can be collecting data. You have to be trained, you have to be certified, you have to know what information management is, you have to know what information security, what information privacy is. I can say here authoritatively that a good number of people that are charged with that responsibilities do not even know what all of these things are. So the issue of education is very, very important, and certification too. Because if I'm going to entrust my data, or if I'm going to give out my information to any individual, I want to be sure that such individual knows the implication of the information that is being given out. And you know, it's not just giving out the information alone. We have to ensure that those information are properly captured, because what will be the benefit at the end of the day if we spend that much on a project like this, and the quality of data that are being collected is not something that can actually be used, you know, for decision making. So there is need for all the agencies that are charged with the responsibility of data collection to ensure that they are not just working in isolation, they are working based on a stipulated standards. And I think NIMC should focus on this and try to partner with stakeholders to ensure that, you know, we're able to develop a kind of homegrown standard, you know, that can work in our environment, things that people can relate with here, so that it will really go a long way. Because once our people know that this information being collected is for their good, they want to plug into the project. And you know, we need to simplify things and also make sure that we have a very clear roadmap as to how this project is going to be executed. So I think it is key for us to ensure that there are standards in place. Once we have standards, the individual organizations collecting all the data would have a basis, you know, for the operation, and the project will be successful at the end of the day.
Thank you. The question now will be to, of course, NIMC boss here. What will be your capacity? Do you have the capacity, you know, to manage such, of course, unified data collection at that level? But we'll get your response as soon as we take the tweets that have come in. We've got quite a number of them. The first one is from Festus Akimboiwa, and he tweets, "Harmonization of personal data can help in the fight against crime and corruption."
And then we have this from Sarikin Wasa of Lokoja. It says, "Nice job. Just that we don't have light to watch you live as usual. Good morning to all of you out there. So we hope you are watching us now using an inverter.
Well, all right. Sunny Michael or Makuji tweets, lack of professionalism and competent personnel plus policy lopsidedness are some of the reasons why we have duplication of data collection agencies in existence but without results.
Olushola A has another tweet. Why is it that it takes so many months to produce original NIMC card?
All right, again, Festus Akimboiwa is tweeting, harmonization of our personal data collection agencies will ensure our data, especially sensitive ones, are kept secured. In fact, it is a task that must be done.
Mike Ayakwa has this. With a good national ID card in place, the issue of personal information / data collection would no longer be a challenge.
Francis Kadri, I have registered for the NIMC since 4 years ago. Like many Nigerians, I'm yet to receive my ID card.
Ibrahim Tudu, it's so easy for foreigners and neighboring countries' citizens to obtain Nigerian ID card. No background information is requested by NIMC. Why?
All right, and this is Utuekong Success Umo tweets, I did my national identity card since 2013. Until now, I have not received it. Too much of information managers in Nigeria.
Kachala Mala, harmonizing data will surely reduce government spending and duplication of data collection.
So, Madam Aziz, what is the capacity of NIM to do
Okay,
this?
yeah, thank you very much. Well, when it comes to capacity, and Mr. Oyewole mentioned about the need to have standards and specification and also to be certified. So I want to let you know that NIMC is ISO certified and also MasterCard certified. And by going through this, it means that all the processes to do with identity is certified. And also, we have taken the steps to step back and not to do something that will not work. And whatever that we do is something that you can audit. And we know because stakeholders of identity are not only within Nigeria, but globally. And I will tell you that if you are now applying for visa, either for US or any of the Schengen, they will ask you for national identification number without us asking them to do that. Why? Because they verified that this is a process that is unique, that will give Nigerians unique identification. Also, our enrollment officers are trained. We take 2 weeks to train them on data alone. You will take about 3 days to talk about data and then the importance of collection of that data before they can even come onto the computer. And since 2008, we have harmonization and integration committee that is made of all the agencies that have been capturing data. And I've seen collaboration, and we have been working. We generated the standards that are required, and all of them are on our website. Then recently, we have also worked our regulations, and they are also up there in the website for comments from the general public. So to summarize, I can say that we have the capacity, and Nigerians are easily trainable, and we have all our staff are graduates, they are easily trainable, and they are certified to do this particular work. In fact, between last November that I came and now, they have captured close to 7 million people. It's unprecedented. So with just little resources.
Why are people not receiving their...
So those are, from the tweets, there are 2 important questions. That one that's talked about, it takes several months to get a card, and the other one was to talk about foreigners collecting NIMC card. So on the first one, that On the card issue, we have been registering and also trying to tell people that it is actually your number, the national identification number, that is your own identity. A card is just a token, but because we have been used to card, so we think that it's the card that is the identity, but no, as Ajijola says, that you need the data and you need to keep the data securely and you need to authenticate or verify this data. And most of this thing is going to happen electronically, not really when you get the card. So as much as that, but it takes time because there's been funding constraint and we are in recession. Therefore, we are.
How much time does it take? I'm sorry, I'm taking words from you. How much time does it take? Because some people said 2013 and some said 4 years ago. I remember I'm one of the lucky ones. I got mine just last year.
Yeah.
Yes. So how long does it take?
You see, for the current registration, which we started in February 2012, but we have not started the card because, as I said, we concentrated on the number because the number is the identity. We have not started the card until late 2014, 2014 that we started producing the card. Therefore, we have a lot of backlogs, but it also takes a lot of process. It is a general multipurpose card, as you know. It has so much applets in it, and it is secure. So, and also we not only our own capacity too. There are Nigerian companies in Lagos that can also produce the card. But as I said, we need resources to do that, and we are printing. Very soon, we'll be able to do a big ban, and everyone will get his own card. The second question was on the foreigners getting the national identity card. Again, that is a false information because in all the enrollment centers that we also have immigration officials because they are the ones that are trained to identify who a foreigner is. We can register foreigners, but we should register them as foreigners, not register them as Nigerians. So we have these officials that helps us. And also, the SSS is also doing its job. A lot of time they may trace that there are some people that have gotten maybe local government paper and they went to NIMSI, they come with this information and we check our database. If it's there, we punch it. If it is, in most cases, it's not really there. So, and most of the staff, again, our staff that are at the border locations, they identify, they know who is a Nigerian and who is not a Nigerian. And also the Nigerians don't also allow people to really register as foreigners. So it's false.
Well, DG of NIMSI, well, thank you very much. Just to indicate that, of course, the conversation is continuing. Before we go on this short break, I just want to make a comment on what you said about some embassies requiring applicants for visas to indicate their national ID number. Sometimes when you are completing the forms for visas, you find that the kind of information they require is even more than what you were required to put down for your national ID card. I mean, you're being asked about your father's particulars, the date of birth, you know, his height, and all, well, of course, the height is not there yet, but the kind of information they mine from you, you just start wondering whether, you know, again, that's what I was asking, you know, who is competent to request you for certain kinds of data, and how much can you volunteer as an individual? But, of course, if you want to make a comment on that, that will be after this short break.
change begins with you. Oh yeah, make we go. Go to so let the change begin from within. Look at you, oh Gerula. Change begins with you and me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me. Change begins with
Chairman of all chairmen. Oh, let me wash your hand for you. Don't worry. Let me take toothpick and. Hey. According to Professor Tranquilizer,
I am disappointed, aghast, crestfallen, and vanquished at your shameful display.
This week on your award-winning comedy series, Professor John Bull, starring Kanayo Okanayo, Mercy Johnson, Queen Wokoye, Yomi Fash Lanso, Oguz Baba.
I'd like to see Mr. Udo Eto. I hear you now, but find me something.
Are you mad?
Go.
Goodness, August, you show your shit.
Oh,
very nice man, generous. Okay, anything for the guests? Maybe feature or something.
Happy weekend, sir. Thank you.
Today is Wednesday.
Professor John Bull, this Tuesday and Friday, 8:30 to 9 p.m. on NTA Network, International, and Star Times.
I'm finished. Who finished you?
So, find me something, find me something, man.
Over and out. Welcome to the new speed of life.
Wow, Fanta! Wow, that great taste! The delicious bubbly Fanta. What could possibly get in our way? Drink your Fanta before someone else does. Enjoy the great tasting Fanta flavors.
All right, welcome back. This is still Good Morning Nigeria, and we're looking, of course, at the multiplicity of data collection agencies and how they can be harmonized. We've got some more tweets coming in. We'd like to thank you for them. And again, our Twitter handle is right there at NTA Chairman. Kingsley.
All right, we have again from one of our regular contributors, Sonny Omakwe. It says, take a finding or take a trip to NBS, that should be National Bureau of Statistics, and NIMSI, that's the National Identity Management Commission. Both commissions, sorry, NBS is not a commission, by the way, NIMSI is. NBS is not a commission. Take a finding to NBS and NIMSI, and both have conflicting data on one personality. It's a shame we haven't gotten this right.
All right, and Hassan Yusuf tweets, personal data is a good idea, but will corrupt people allow it?
Ibrahim Tudu again says NIMSI should have taken their data capture to the 774 local government areas rather than staying in state capitals. Most people are disenfranchised.
And Festus Akimboiwa tweets, controllers of our data must encrypt our data so that only authorized people can access it.
And Clifford Agugoesi tweets, data storage is critical. Do we have a database of data centers in the country, their ownership structure, and where the data is kept?
And this one is coming from, again, Clifford. That's the second tweet. How private is private data in the 21st century with ubiquitous social media platforms? How do we pay for the free Facebook, etc.?
All right, and then we have this from Ishaq Abdul Hamid. He said, data manipulation is selfishly pursued by governments, organizations, and individuals, depending on the advantages to be derived therefrom.
And Bright Iron tweets, I would say before personal data are collected, general census needs to be conducted to enable the processes easier.
All right, those are some of the tweets that we have in the meantime. To return to the conversation, Ajijola, again, I made a remark about embassies mining so much data from Nigerians. Is there a reciprocal, or should there be a reciprocal transaction for this? Nigerian missions also mining as much data, as much information they can get from visa applicants, and if such data is mined, how should it be handled?
Well, first and foremost, I think that the quantum of information collected by a lot of embassies is overdone. I think it's extremely intrusive. Now, the challenge you have is that if you insist on reciprocity, which we should do, then it begins a downward spiral of collecting more and more and more. At some point, I think enough is enough. And I think to that extent, once the NIMSI database, especially this ID number, because I think this is the most crucial takeaway from the DG today, that it is actually the number that is important, not the plastic. And I think once that thing increases in credibility, then you may find out that the embassies themselves will begin to reduce, because remember, it is also a burden on them collecting. But having said that, I do think that there needs to be some, what I call high-level discussion between governments to say, you know, there are some things that are a bit too much to demand for. But in continuing, I'd still like to address a question that I think Kingsley asked and that I don't think was answered. And that is the issue of keeping our data overseas or with foreign companies. I think this is a very big no-no. And the basic reason is that once your data is overseas, basically you have no jurisdiction over it. And it is the security agencies there, the intelligence agencies there, and even the companies and the courts who have primary access. And I think this is a very, very big national security issue that government itself needs to really face squarely. We should not be having backups of Nigerians or data about Nigerians outside of Nigeria. The gentleman in one of the tweets, when he spoke about Facebook, at the end of the day, how does Facebook make its money? It makes its money from adverts, by you using it. You use it of your own free will. And I think the lesson here is that when something is free, please note, you are the product being sold. It is your eyeballs that Facebook is selling, not that you are getting, that you are the customer in terms of something beneficial. Also, I think the suggestion of the list of databases, I think that's an excellent idea. But having said that, why can't somebody in the relevant department in one of our higher education institutions embark on that as part of maybe their thesis? One should remember, I don't think everything needs to go back to government. And then the issue of collecting data in 774 local governments. Beautiful idea, but I think the DG of NIMSI would agree. It's a funding matter. Can Nigeria pay for it? I'm sure he would love to be collecting in every local government. But realistically, you have to balance funding because at the end of the day, should you spend the money on collecting data?
I'm sorry to interject. Already you have the National Population Commission required to be set up in 774 local governments.
Correct.
So that's a take-up
can you
point.
piggyback on them?
Precisely.
Why not? But I think the critical thing that for me, the takeaway is that even if you do all of that, at the end of the day, it's about a number. And I think that's the critical thing. So that there has to be much better synergy between NIMSI and places like the Population Commission. But I really do want to emphasize that it is not good, even for us as a system, for NIMSI to collect everything. I gave the example during the break. Somebody's HIV status should not be on the NIMSI database. It can be on your hospital, whether it's a private hospital, a government hospital.
The person's hospital.
On the person's hospital. It shouldn't even be with the central insurance agency. You see, so it's not everything that must be with NIMSI. And I would ask our viewers to please understand that. Let us charge NIMSI with some very specific information that it should keep, and that it should keep that information extremely well and extremely securely.
Well, I was wondering, DG NIMSI, what Ajijola just said, what does this mean in terms of implication for the harmonization of personal data that is out there, which ultimately is the basis for this conversation we are having?
Well, okay, like the meeting that we had with the VP recently, and also it became very clear that like the Population Commission has about 4,000 locations. NIMSI population and INEC, usually they are in every local government, and most of the times we are even housed in the same place. So we are presently in about 441 local government areas with more than 600 locations where identity is being captured. So, and we know that we are supposed to be in each of the local government at least to capture data. But we also come up with this regulation because we tried it before to engage the private sector. It didn't work. So we have now given regulations again whereby we can license people also to capture the data in all the nooks and crannies that we talked about. The same thing with the 4,000 locations of the Population Commission too. They can also capture data for themselves and also capture for NIMSI. The same thing that NIMSI system can also capture data for Population Commission and also capture for us. The importance of harmonizing is that, first of all, we reduce cost. Secondly, we don't need to have biometric information just going around anywhere. So it should be in one location that we put all the resources to keep it safe in one location. That one location, as we mentioned earlier, should be a distributed system that is within many. Yeah, we have storage capacity that can take the whole the data of the whole nation. But mind you, we are just talking about the identity of the person. We are not talking about, like someone was comparing us with the Bureau of Statistics. No, we are just talking about the person, about the identity of the person. So just basic information to identify the person. Just like when you went to do your BVN, they just captured just like 5 data, and the most important aspect that we want is the biometrics, 10 fingerprints, the face, and also the iris. So that is the information, basic information that NIMSI requires. Some of the questions that were asked, like the database of data structures. So again, there is no such database of the data structures. Somebody have to go around, as Ajijola says, to take this from all the other information. Then also it was mentioned about census also. Census happens every 10 years. Again, just like election also happens every 4 years. So what this government is saying that both the census, NIMSI, and also INEC, that we should work together and have unique identification of the individual, so that we don't have, so that there won't be much problem. We won't spend so much money to be doing this thing all the time.
What's the relationship is? What is it like at the moment? Do you have, other, agencies coming to you to access the information you have? Because recently the government announced that it is contemplating to begin to use the national ID as voter card.
Well, I believe that, it's the newspapers that just put the headline. But inside the articles themselves, that is not what has been said. It should be in the near future, but not right now, because INEC has to register people before it does the election. And what we are saying is that they need to ask the people their national identification number, so that they don't need to capture biometrics again. That is what the essence of all what harmonization is all about. But if come 2019 harmonization have not happened, then still they have to go out and capture the data again. Then we'll wait for 2023. So, but what government is saying, in the next 2 years, harmonize all this information. collect proper data in such a way that there's no
duplication of purpose.
duplication, and also that a scanner will not say that it doesn't accept someone's ID.
What Nigeria, resource should be, because it's a Nigeria resource, and I think it should be something that we should be proud of with a lot of integrity. If you travel, the first thing you are asked is that what's your social security number? With your social security number, they are able to know everything about you. Even if they want to understand the doctor who attends to you, even though the issues will be private, they can have access to speaking with the doctor, to know your issue, to know where you're coming from, whether you have had any driving offense and all of those things and all that. But I don't know if all this will come to play when you have your data harmonization taken with different standards and on different locations. So for me, the challenge still will be most of the, like Dr. Oyewole has said, he said there should be standard, there should be training, there should be certification. The kind of certification I know he's talking about is not the MasterCard kind of certification. Because those guys who work in some of those private organizations do not have any kind of certification, do not have any kind of training, because most of them are even OND holders. Most of them don't even attend university, or even if we attend university, you understand the kind of data that you should take or how you should take the data. So that is the reason we keep seeing situations where they always ask you to come and re-register, come and retake your data, come and to reprocess your data. I think that is exactly, and I pin my words with Dr. Oyewole that the standards should be set, because if you do not have standards, you cannot regulate.
All right, Dr. Agabi, thank you. Let's take a final remarks from our guest in Lagos. That's Dr. Oyewole. Dr. Oyewole, we're looking at harmonizing, of course, the data collection and domiciling it in one agency, say, of course, NIMSE. Do you foresee any security challenges, as, of course, Mr. Ajijola here said earlier on?
Like I've been saying, and just like Dr. Bayero also reiterated, it is very key for us to have standard in place, which ultimately will ensure that there are specifications as to how data should be captured. And for the various agencies that are involved in data collection, once there is standard in place, you have similar specifications, and when it comes to integration, it becomes seamless. Because in a situation where an agency has a different format in terms of specification, integrating with other agencies becomes a bottleneck. And the need to educate those that are going to be charged with that responsibilities can never be overemphasized. There is need for them to have general information management competencies in handling those information, and also in capturing those information, because information that is not properly captured, at the end of the day, you have a repository providing you information about people that are not accurate. Like one of the respondents mentioned on Twitter earlier on that, two different government agencies having different data of a particular individual. And when you talk about personal information management, you're talking about unique information that actually addresses an individual. It is specific to that individual alone. And, there can't be any other two person having that same identity. So the issue of training and retraining is very, very pertinent. The need for us to ensure that we have our own homegrown standards, which would take care of security.
Recorded, sent to the central database, and the voice analysis is done in a fraction of a second, and they get a pop-up. So again, yes, you could use destination, but again, you can imagine all of us going to NIMSI and opening our mouth. But I would like, very quickly, I would like to touch on the issue of multiple standards and databases. Let's give a practical example. Many of us went to INEC many, many years ago and registered. They have that database. Later on, when we went to re-register, they collected the same information with a photograph. Then, in the last registration, not only did they collect the same information with the photograph, they now collected fingerprints. So how do you merge? You can't really merge a database that doesn't have fingerprints with a database that has or that doesn't have pictures. So even within the same organization, it's a very, very difficult challenge. One final point, please. Buy-in. Please, NIMSI, government, explain to stakeholders what is in it for them.
Okay. Abdul Hakim Ajijola is, of course, in-house GMN expert in information communication technology.
Thank you, ma.
Thank you very much. We also have Executive Director, Center for Cyber Awareness and Development, Dr. Bayero Agabi. Dr. Agabi, thank you very much for your presence.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
And I leave.
All right, let's, DJ Nimsi, you are itching to say something. We're pressed for time now. Very briefly, yes.
Well, there's so much that has been said about standards, about specifications, and we have them on the NIMSI website that I want experts to also visit and then advise us.
All right, Dr. Aziz, I'm sorry, I have to cut you here.
Okay.
We have just a few tweets to take.
Yeah, that's right. We have a couple of tweets to take. It says, Emmanuel Oloni Ruha, I want to advise NIMSI to learn from INEC on how to hasten production of national ID card. Must we wait in eternity for perfection?
All right, Bright Irene tweets, this collection of personal data, is it going to be short or long-term process? And what guarantee this time that's the process?
And then Samuel Edet Akbar, it's as if giving out personal data is endangering one's security. Imagine what is happening to BVN. I regret giving out my data.
All right, those are the tweets that we have received. We'd like to thank all of you for, of course, contributing to our discussion. And that's how we end the discussion on this aspect of Good Morning Nigeria. We're going on to sports.
All right, Claire, by the way, we haven't signed off the DJ NIMSI. I think it's still Malam Ali Aziz, Director General of the Identity Management Commission, would like to thank you for being part of our discussion this
Thank you very much.
Okay, now talking sports, as Claire said, Cristiano Ronaldo has beaten Lionel Messi to win the Ballon d'Or 2016 as Marais also picks up the BBC African Footballer of the Year award. Plus, the Gunners to face Bayern Munich in Champions League round of 16. Let's go over now to our sports desk.